This one is, I will support Trump no matter what he is accused of. What do liberals think of me? Of course, it's anonymous. Top commenter here is Howard. And he says, Anonymous is speaking to liberals here, and it is implied that he or she has his or her middle finger raised. This kind of behavior is very common among Donald Trump supporters. I call them the FYC, with the YC being you crowd. Whether or not they end up voting for DT in the anonymity of the voting booth, they love to stick it to liberals as revenge for having elected a black man twice. I think the other major block of DT supporters, particularly among religious fundamentalists, are the single issue voters, specifically abortion. They are so heavily committed to the anti-schmortion that no other issue matters. For both groups, DT has given them a reason to wear blinders. He consistently harps on his critics as being enemies of the people for spreading fake news. But like the boy who was always crying wolf, that Donald Trump strategy is becoming less and less effective. Or at least I hope so, for the good of the country. Now, we are beginning to see the emergence of a few other Republicans who actually have the temerity to announce plans to challenge DT in the primaries. This is unheard of. Challenging an incumbent in the same party, they don't have a prayer to succeed, but it speaks volumes of the internal chaos within the Republican Party. Clearly, that response was written prior to the election, but we're going to keep moving on. Les says, yet they refuse to admit that the best deterrent to abortion, as in any issue, is prevention. In the case of abortion, that means birth control. The right to lifers do not encourage effective birth control. Exactly. If they really wanted to prevent the termination of pregnancies, they would help women prevent pregnancies in the first place. We would be trying to help women protect themselves, not only from a pregnancy, but also from disease. We would be helping these children to be not born into a society that doesn't want them and to a parent that cannot take care of them. David's comment here, I'm fond of saying vasectomies prevent abortions. How true, David. Carolyn here says, anti-abortion goes against our constitutional right to freedom of religion. Abortion was made legal because of illegal abortionists were killing and maiming women. It is not something that I would choose, but it is a woman's decision. Condoms or vasectomy, don't put it in. Those are the men's choices. That is true. You hear a lot of men that speak about not giving women the right over their own bodies because, well, what about me? What if I wanted that baby? Well, good sir, when you are the one carrying that baby inside of your belly, you get to choose. Up until that point, your choices are to use condoms, get a vasectomy, or pull out. Otherwise, after that, the choices are out of your hands, sir. Moving on. Freedom says, the same way some Germans supported Hitler's totalitarian, dictatorial, oppressive fascist regime. Ugh, that was mouth sauce. He hypnotized Germans to believe that killing 6 million Jews was necessary. It's pure fascism. I agree with that one. Judith says, this position is unfathomable to people who aren't MAGA. Most of us support people who are honorable and try to do right. Voting for someone who does wrong all the time doesn't make sense to us. And voting for DJT in particular is baffling. He's ignorant, stupid, and criminal, and his policies hurt most Americans. G. Blake says, what does it matter what liberals think of you? What do you think of your own allegiance to what is best for this country? I'm convinced that a large selection of the American populace are not in the least bit concerned about American constitutional values. And I feel that anyone who says that they will give no thought to what any president is accused of, or for you, this is only the case for Trump. And if so, why? Why should we not question his or her patriotism? Exactly. If one person is above not only the law, but question at all, and that no matter what they do, you will support them, that's really terrifying, actually. That one individual can literally, as he said, kick a baby in Times Square or sign away all of our rights with the stroke of a pen, and it doesn't matter. You'll continue supporting him. Yet this isn't a cult. This isn't some kind of crazy conspiracy, fascist takeover of our government and our lives. How is one person so impervious to you? I just can't make sense of it. Doug says, this didn't age very well since this comment was written. Trump was voted out, incited an insurrection, attempted a coup, was reelected, pardoned all the insurrectionists, and is now running a trade war with the world and using ICE agents as his own Gestapo. Exactly. Do you still support him no matter what? Do you stand by that comment? Is there still nothing that he can do? Taking food out of the mouths of babies isn't a step too far. Leveraging your life, your health care, or your dinner table? Nothing. Nothing at all he can do. One juggernaut says Trump policies do not work. We told you so. Grocery store prices have not gone down. We told you so. No peace hasn't been negotiated. We told you so. Farmers are going bankrupt, and we told you so. Joblessness has increased. We told you so. Tariffs have increased U.S. prices, and we told you so. We've lost our important allies worldwide, and we told you so. The immigrants were being deported and not criminals, but grocers, restaurateurs, factory workers, moms, dads, and children. We told you so. Healthcare is being stripped from the poor Americans, and we told you so. Undocumented immigrants couldn't get free healthcare anyways, and we told you so. For over 100 years, immigrants have been demonized. Germans, Chinese, Italian, Irish. They take our jobs. They're dirty. They carry diseases. They smell. Their food smells. Those were our ancestors, and it wasn't true then, and it's not true now. We told you so. And I like that poem. Doug would like us to know that this statement is a forthright and honest statement from a person completely committed to tribal politics. It is firmly rooted in an us versus them mentality where tribal loyalty take priority over any and all other principles, including science and morality. You recognize it by its intensified polarization, such that it is difficult or impossible to engage in any productive dialogue. It reflects a heightened emotional appeal, not based by objective facts. It features reduced accountability, such that it is intolerant to dissent, even in its own ranks. And it's reinforced via social media, where like minded people can congregate in echo chambers, all touting the tenets of the tribe. This question reflects almost all of these characteristics. I won't try to speak for liberals, but from my viewpoint, most people who are not dyed in the wool tribalists will recognize the querent as a loyal member of the tribe. Elaine says, more like a cult. Steven says, supporting Trump no matter what just proves MAGA is a cult, that they have the Trump derangement syndrome, or Trump delusional syndrome, I guess. Susan says, I think the other major block of DT supporters, particularly among the religious fundamentalists, are the single issue voters, specifically abortion. They are so heavily committed to anti abortion that no other issue matters. Her comment to this quote here, actually, with a segment of religious fundamentalists, there are two issues. One, which they tend to only speak of amongst their own. Those that are looking for the rapture are actively in favor of the diminishment of the US as a world power. In other words, they don't want America to exist as a democracy. They believe that because they can find no reference to America in the prophecies, America has to cease to exist in order for Christ to return and make them all kings and priests to rule over all of us with an iron fist. The fundamentalist churches have become insurrectionists. And I believe that too. And it's one of the things that's always frightened me so much about having religious fundamentalists running our government and making policy for us. It's the fact that they are excited and delighting in the idea of the end of the world. They delight in the idea that the earth is going to be destroyed and that only them or only those that they deem worthy will be saved and taken out of this planet ahead of time. And when you are gleefully looking forward to the end of the world, then you don't see any responsibility to protect it or protect those that are on it. In fact, you see a responsibility to escalate the damage, to accelerate the destruction, because it brings you so much closer to your redemption, your whatever it is that you believe in. I'm not a religious person. In fact, I'm fearful and actually suspicious of religion specifically because of this. Because I don't believe anything that delights in the end of the world or the suffering of inhabitants of the earth could possibly be a good or positive thing. That's my 2 cents. Remember to comment, like, and subscribe if you ever want to see me again. And as always, have the day you deserve and the rights you voted for all of us to have.